There we go.
Oh,
All right.
welcome to Be Well today with our special guest speaker, Sandro Bilobrk.
Perfect.
He will be talking to us about the power of intercultural awareness and interconnected coaching. And just brief introduction. Sandro shares with me that he's a thought leader in psychological coaching and business entrepreneurship. And he wants to take us through a workshop talk where we will examine interesting considerations and key learnings within intercultural competence, as well as increasing awareness for the importance of harmony and cooperation across borders. So we'll learn some intricate neurological factors of traveling to a different country and under difficult circumstances, and how we can adapt better, as well as approach people who are faced with these struggles in what we call our native country with open eyes and in a solution-focused manner, aiming to create ideal outcomes for all parties. My name is Deborah Spaltmann, and I will be your host today, standing in for Gary Marcus Judge, who is currently traveling. So over to you, Sandro. Share with us about intercultural awareness.
Thank you very much. This was a perfect introduction. Yeah, not too much to add there from my side. It's a great pleasure as a psychological coach and business or psychological advisor and business coach, depending on the day, really, to be dealing with and talking with many different people across my daily work. It's my favorite thing to do. I get to help people, but also I get to expand my own horizons and learn about these different intricacies of human behavior. For this topic in particular, that I prepared this presentation or this workshop for, of course, we are talking about, like Debbie already introduced, the interconnectedness between different cultures, different nations. I myself grew up bilingually. I was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina in Europe and grew up in Germany, and with my parents being full-blood Bosnians. Yeah, and I've grown up within multicultural environments, was working for international companies within Germany. So I was very accustomed to meeting new talking to people of different backgrounds, which is an amazing experience. Very, very recently, so my most recent endeavor was working as a job coach for up to 500 Ukrainian women that came over to Germany, and due to the political, global political situation, and having arrived in this different culture, different people, groups of individuals, have been forced to learn a new language, get accustomed to the differences in culture, as well as make a living here, build up a whole identity, which is including learning a job, adjusting the family life, or maybe starting a family here for some even. And this was an amazing experience, which I would like to share with you all first and foremost. So when it comes to these, so taking this experience as a specific example. So what were the difficulties that people were faced by? So of course there's the language barrier. Very obviously, there's the region of the brain which is responsible for learning the language is already fully developed for people that are grown up, and so it's difficult, of course, to learn a different language and get accustomed to it. Then there's the cultural differences. I was already talking to Debbie about this before the start of this workshop, which is little intricacies like that. In Ukraine, women do not typically, I should stress, look into the eyes of older men as well as authority figures, because this is a sign for asserting dominance, which in their culture should typically be avoided. In the German culture, of course, this is very different. So especially when you are in a work context or when you're applying for a job, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, it is important to look the other directly into the eye, to have a firm handshake, and to immediately establish this level of confidence rather than dominance. So these are some of the simple differences that you can see between two cultures, which on the surface might seem very negligible, but for somebody that is faced by such huge, shocking transformations in their life, when they suddenly have to adapt to these changes, it can be overwhelming. Yeah. So, and then of course there's the things, and this is particularly interesting for my area of work, which is to be a job coach and to encourage these people to follow their dreams regardless of their position. So anybody that has had a multicultural background knows or should know that your identity is the same regardless of whether you're currently living in Germany, the United States, Great Britain, or what have you. You're still the same person, of course. However, and this is another interesting tidbit, due to the fact that our brain is so tightly linked with the phrases that we use, and because the words that we speak also get processed again from our brain, and this creates a identity for the language. Yeah? So people that speak multiple languages already know this, that you have a different sort of personality, a different vibe, so to say, when you're speaking in a different language as opposed to your native language. And yeah, and being in a stressful situation, having to learn German, when you're already under so much pressure, can in some cases create this weakened state. So this situation where you're not speaking the language fully, you feel dumb, which in some of these cases is insane, because some of these young women have, for example, have a master's degree in law, which they're certainly not by any stretch of the imagination dumb. None of them were, by my estimate. But still, this is the feeling that they get because they do not speak the language and they feel like they are a different person to what they were before. It's scary. It can be scary. It's a scary situation. Then, of course, you have discrimination and bias. Yeah. So being alone in a situation where you are surrounded by different challenges, different new obstacles that you need to face. It is a difficulty to overcome this on your own. And this is where coaching comes in, but this is also where self-confidence comes in, and an understanding that things are not as bad as they might seem at first glance. So we are talking about a difference in culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said.
I just wanted to say, when you're talking about a difference in culture and adding on the aspect of that is a refugee or someone who's leaving their culture and being forced to go into a different culture, that is an added element of stress. That's I think it's also very important to understand when you're communicating with someone who has to settle with that kind of stress. You were talking about neurological elements of this, how they are able to transport what they're being heard, said. That would be totally different if they were relaxed, they were on vacation, they were just reading the menu, in a different language, than if they're trying to, get over a very difficult situation in a new country.
Yes, it's one of the key aspects of my work is dealing with perspectives, and this is where the magic, but also this, like I said, this scary element of it. So it's a flip side. On the one hand, it can be a scary element. On the other hand, it's an incredible opportunity, because depending on how your perspective is, arriving in a new country can be huge. So we live in a globalized world. We live in a time where everything is interconnected. We just, for an example, we are talking across different countries, across Zoom easily, as if we were in the same room. But still, like you mentioned, and being under a stressful situation, whichever it may be, it can be work stress, can be having to flee for political or global reasons, and arriving in a different country, all of a sudden everything appears huge. Yeah. So everyone is speaking a different language. Of course, in Europe, a lot of people speak English, but maybe you're not so used to speaking English, so you cannot really talk to everyone. This is also a very sort of this ivory tower that we come to expect, that everything is so globalized, and a lot of people can communicate in one way or another. But maybe if you were never faced with these challenges, it can still be huge. It can be a difference in how you can deal with these sort of obstacles. Yeah. And so this is where the aspect of cultural sensitivity comes in, to not just understand as a coach or as, let's say, a person that is speaking with someone that has come from a different country for whatever reason, but also for you arriving in a different country, again, depending on the context and whether you're there for vacation only or if you really want to get integrated. So first of all, it's the understanding that there is a difference. So, so there is a difference. Therefore, you should be aware that not everything that you would be saying, or not everything that you would be normally doing when you are talking to someone of your own country will be interpreted in the same way when you are speaking to someone else. So it is essentially like talking to a different person. So of course there's this testing phase. It's not so scary when you are just aware of it, that there are differences. Like you said, like once again, Debbie, I think you mentioned in our conversation earlier that it's the element of openness, just being aware that there is a difference. But this already creates this like a playing field. Yeah, and from this playing field, you can build up empathy. You can build a rapport by talking to the person, talking about their experience. And again, this element of openness and embracing also the commonalities between different cultures. And lastly, which is an element that is not just important for cultural sensitivity, but for my work in general, which is this the continuous learning, which is my mantra is that, well, yeah, like I said, there's a different perspective that you can take in, but there's always this perspective of, this is a learning experience. You can always learn, talking to a different person, doing something new, learning a different language, starting a new activity, or finding friends in a different environment. It's always a learning experience, and whether it's successful or whether you fail, it's not the end of the world, and you continue onwards and embrace the growth, basically.
I have a question for you. When you're talking about cultural sensitivity and coaching, how do you coach someone to be more culturally sensitive? How does that work? You know, how do you do that?
Well, that's a very interesting question. The nature of coaching is accompanying a person across their thoughts and across their their intrinsic thoughts, and guiding them towards a certain point. So when I first speak to someone, speak to you, for instance, and let's say you've come to me because you wanted to be coached, maybe this is your exact issue, that you are dealing with many people from different cultures and you want to increase your sensitivity towards it. We would first get to know each other, yeah? So very similar elements to general conversations. But as a coach, you really go into what are the thought patterns beneath your struggles, your issues, and to determine a commonality and potential misbeliefs, in the quotation, so misbeliefs, they're misbeliefs in the sense that for you, they are creating a challenge in your life, which could very well be that there's a cultural insensitivity in some kind, that maybe you take something for granted, which is not so common for somebody else. And so by determining what it really is that you want to improve on or that you want to learn, you can gradually move towards it. So as a coach, there's a lot of work to be done, knowing the issue that your client has, and also preparing yourself thoroughly, because of course no coach has the full knowledge of how every culture behaves and what is the specific needs of all of the cultures. But a coach would be guiding you and using his professional time to find the solution to get you there, which is there's methods, there's tools that are used.
Thank you. David.
Yes. When my family, we used to travel all the time and going all over the place. Whenever we traveled, we did not say we were from America. Just like most Texans, we would say we're from Texas. And there is a difference in there. Like here in Texas, if we go out to get something to eat and we order a Coke, well, they ask us what we want, Dr. Pepper or Sprite or Coke or whatever. And if we go to the northern part of the United States, we'll say we want a Coke, and they bring us our drink. What was that? That was Coke. You ordered a Coke. No, that's not what we wanted. And then in my work life, I think you already have an understanding. I've done a lot of international engineering, engineering management and stuff like that. And English is probably one of the hardest languages to learn, particularly American English. And what I found by working in different countries is people are often afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. So I use something like puns, a play on words, dad jokes, if you will, to get people to loosen up a little bit. I want people to know that there is nothing wrong they can say, because here in the United States, we have there and there spelled differently, but they mean different things. I want to go there, or I am their friend, spelled different. And that's hard to understand because in most languages, you have gender assigned to nouns.
Yeah.
And that's hard to overcome. So I always let the people I was working with know that don't be afraid to make a mistake. I just want you to tell me what you want to say, and I will find a way to make it work for us. And you have to be able to be open like that no matter where you live, because in today's world, everybody works globally now. And you have to, it gets back to the empathy section on here. You've got to understand that they're going to be nervous. They're going to make mistakes. And I do something called servant leadership. And that is empowering other people that work for me and stuff like that, giving people opportunities. Most people work for bosses, and bosses want to dictate how you're supposed to do things. And that just makes the problem worse. So when we're looking at the cultural sensitivity, bosses don't work at all. And, you just have to be able to find a way to get people to understand that it's okay to make a mistake in language and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You raise, so two very, very important and intricate points there. So one is so I highlighted the understanding of the differences, but what you mentioned is also very important, is that despite the fact that there are, of course, differences, there are little mistakes that can be made in actual day-to-day conversation. So as a servant leader, for example, it is your duty to be yourself, to guide by example, and to let the people, to give them the room and the opportunity to grow and adapt. So this is the best thing that you can do. So one of the worst things based on data that you can do is to be as a job or as a friend, to be really restricted, so to talk very slowly to them, or like they don't understand, or to treat them differently in a way. Of course, you should be sensitive to the fact that there could be differences, but still remain this active flow of conversation and give them the room to grow, which is a perfect point. The second one that you mentioned is this identity. So that you mentioned it, for example, you are Texan instead of saying that you're American. So this level of identity and cultural identity is very important to a lot of people. So this is one of the key differences. So this one of the key challenges, I should say, for people that come to different languages who have this high level of identity with their culture, because all of a sudden they don't have the affirmations that they have across their usual day-to-day life. Now they have to adapt and still find out who they are, being separated from their culture, if this is the circumstance that they're finding themselves in. Right. And so a coach, to get back to the previous question as well, would help them to find out that their identity is their identity, like I mentioned at the beginning, regardless of the country that they are from. But that part of the identity is also the fact or is also the ability to adapt to the environment and the circumstance and be yourself, whether you are in Germany, Ukraine, America, a different country, or whatever.
Right. Or a different country like Texas.
Or a different country like, exactly, yeah. Or Bavaria, also beautiful country.
We Bavarians are similar to you Texans. The only difference is we don't give out our own passports like you guys do. You can get a Texas passport, yeah.
I love your culture, though. Oh, wonderful.
Go ahead.
It sure beats Northern Germany. But my family's from Sweden too, so.
Oh, nice. Also, there's the multicultural aspect there. Yeah. Very nice. So another important model that I wanted to mention when it comes to the dealing with different cultures is Hofstede's cultural dimensions. It is one of the most important models, or at least one of the ones that stuck out to me the most throughout my studies, which is Hofstede's cultural dimensions. So it's a very highly replicated, highly valid model, which aims to define key, what's it called, spectrums, key metrics, you could say, or dimensions, it says here, of course, to differentiate between characteristics of different cultures. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is the power distance. So the not looking leaders or people of higher authority directly into the eye in some countries, whereas in other countries like Germany, there is not so much difference in power. So even when you are, even if you're an intern working at a larger company and you see the CEO, of course you wouldn't talk to him like you would talk to just anybody, but still you can shake his hand, you can look him in the eye, you can even make a joke. In other countries, this is not the case. So Ukraine and China being one of the main examples that come to mind. Individualism, collectivistic, another dimension. So this is, so the difference, the disparity is a bit between West and East as well, though it's not so simple. But in the Western countries, America, to some extent also Germany and UK, we have a fairly high degree of individualism. Which is, of course, also capitalism. Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to have their beautiful life and their dream accomplished. Whereas in a lot of Eastern cultures, particularly when you think about Buddhism, for example, also the religion from thereabouts, they truly care more about the collectivistic well-being and serving your serving the group, your social group, whether it's family, state, or what have you. Then there's uncertainty avoidance. typical masculinity and femininity. This is the dimension as it is defined. What it means is it's talking about typical traits that are associated still within science of masculinity and femininity. So things like dominance and differences in gender as well. So we were talking about Arabic or Muslim cultures where there's different sets of rules depending on whether you're a man or a woman when it comes to your everyday life and the things that you can do or can say, which is in other countries, there's not this difference. Long-term versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. So this is one of the, like I said, this is one of the most famous models in psychology, and it can be used, or it is actively used also in bigger corporations that are traveling to different countries that have multiple locations, or sending their, or preparing their employees to be an expat for a while in a different country, which is how you sort of learn, okay, where does a specific country find itself within this dimension, or these 6 dimensions, to sort of know what you can expect.
Can I just say something here? I found, when we were speaking earlier, and I worked with, people from India and from China and Poland and the US and all of these various different countries and cultures and things. And one of these, if you're looking at Hofstede's dimensions, you are aware of it. Let's say you're acting out the curiosity that you have of a different culture. You're acting on that curiosity instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to be curious," and then you go on and do your own thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
But if you're actually acting on that curiosity, and you are aware that, for example, your Chinese team has a very power distance. The boss is the boss, and then there's nothing, and then there comes the team,
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, they are very collective. So it's all for the good of whatever is good for the collective.
Yes.
And if you're aware of that when you're doing your communications, when you're talking or negotiating or trying to persuade, for example, if you use these elements, if you're aware of these elements, and I'm going to use the word cognizant, you are cognizant that there is a difference between, like I'll say a Texan goes in, puts their boots up on the table and says, "Okay, guys, so we're going to go out for a steak and a beer after work," right? And your Chinese person would just totally freak out.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think being aware.
Maybe we commute the person. I know that. It's fine. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes. Yeah, but exactly. That's the interesting part about dealing with these different cultures, and also being a psychologist and having these models in hand, because you notice that there's a structure always, and most of the time it works. Yeah, well, when I'm talking about the general population, of course, we're very aware of the fact that we're living, unfortunately, still in a world where there's injustice and there's oppression everywhere. Yeah, so in many parts of the world, but not talking about that. Most cultures that you would experience, that you would come in contact with, do have a structure and a society which works for them and which they're accustomed to. They have their day-to-day life, and for a German, of course, this difference in power coming to arriving at a Chinese company or working with a Chinese team might seem shocking. Just like how a Texan throwing their boots on top of a shelf might seem shocking to a Chinese person. But again, there's you don't necessarily see it from first glance, but there's mostly a structure behind it that works and that is functioning for this person and also for this environment that they're used to. And embracing this and embracing the fact that that there should be no judgment, yeah, when coming in contact with these different cultures, but this openness and this readiness to learn, to first understand the big picture before you build your own opinion and put your own sort of moral values and attributes on top of it. This is what creates, in my opinion, the fundamental basis for dealing with these different cultures. So to not just immediately say, oh, this is different to what I'm used to, I'm just going to distance myself from it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, this is just a bit of the repetition of what I've already mentioned. So Ukraine has a higher power distance, it's more collectivistic, and they also differ in these other terms. Yeah. So there's more uncertainty avoidance in Germany. The Ukrainians are typically a bit more ready to take risks. There's a higher degree of masculinity in Ukraine. I'm fairly sure. I'm not absolutely certain. Germans are more long-term oriented, and Germans are typically also a bit more restraintful. Yeah, so this is, and hearing this, of course, a lot of it goes with the stereotypes that you know, but it's not just about the stereotypes, but it's about the overall average. Yeah, so like when you come to a country and you know that there are certain differences, you can go with these things that you learn, and then be as open as possible. Exactly. Yeah, another thing, is and this is was a very interesting part about the job coachings, is that anybody that knows the Germans knows the Germans have a very strict work culture. The Germans love to sit at their desk, complete their work, and they're very diligent doing it, but they do not like, let's say, the chitter chatter. They don't like the taking too many breaks or not seeming as if you are really taking the work seriously. Yeah. Once again, talking about stereotypes and averages. When it comes to more Eastern or different cultures that maybe do not have such a strict business everyday business lifestyle, they typically prefer more personal relationships with their peers, being more leisurely when it comes to also the working times, for example, and being overall having a more communicative and trust-based relationship as opposed to a let's say rule and regulation-based relationship. Again, talking about businesses and work. Yeah. So when it comes to the coaching work of helping clients and adapting to new and different environments, it's like I said, first finding out where lies the deeper thought. How is the mind structured? What are the assumptions that one might have, and then from there on build up this general foundation. So yeah, so this once again, understanding differences, to be open to build new connections, be ready and capable of developing new skills. So this is also another fact, a neurological aspect of, we all know the placebo, which is your brain, and whether or not your brain is willing and already primed to receiving something, it will automatically adjust to this. So if you know your identity and if you feel comfortable in a different country, learning the language will also come easier to you. It's not about, oh, I'm just giving up my own identity and I want to embrace a German identity. So it's not about that. It's about, okay, I'm now a Ukrainian person that arrives in Germany. and I'm fine with this. I want to learn this. I want to get used to this culture, and I want to learn the language. I want to have the skill. I want to learn the skill. And getting to this point is something that, of course, it's nice if somebody tells you, yeah, the sentence, but actively getting to this point yourself is what a coach would help you with, and which will ultimately enable you and open you up to this whole new world of experiences and opportunities. Yes.
Yeah, I think coaches are supposed to be asking questions. That's their job, expanding awareness and looking at things or shining a light on it from a different perspective. And I think that is where, particularly when it comes to cultural awareness, that coaches can do a lot to support that and help people to maybe, see things from another side or shine the light on it from a different perspective. And I think there's a big opportunity for coaches to be of service there, to actually help people to, ask the question, well, for example, doesn't want to sit at the same table or for some reason, or it's like, why, why are you upset about that? So if they don't want to sit with you, it's because, might not have anything to do with you. Why don't you just open the conversation and say, let's have a conversation. Why wouldn't you want to sit with me? Well, because you are a man and I am a woman, and I don't sit at a table with men that I don't know, that are not a part of my family or something. And then all of a sudden that barrier is closed. It's dropped, that barrier. And I think it's important that coaches help people to understand how to be more curious and how to ask more questions and how to proactively, participate in helping the other person who's going through a cultural change to make it easier for them, I think. Just
Absolutely.
thinking out loud.
So it's
Yeah,
really, yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just want, so this is a very important point that I want to mention, is that the change in perspective and the accompanying power of the mind, So just keeping or just remembering the fact that everything that we ever experience, every conversation that we have, and every day when we wake up, all of this is created essentially through our brain and our mind. So there's this power, but there's also this scary difficulty and these challenges that come with this, because our mind can create the most beautiful of realities and the most beautiful of worlds, but it can also lead down a very dark path if we are not careful. And as a coach, of course, I'm not a psychotherapist, so I need to be very careful when it comes to psychological diseases. Of course, as somebody who has a master's degree in psychology, I have a very thorough understanding, but I cannot offer healing in that sense. The German work regulations are very strict about that. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
As well they should be. And nevertheless, having studied psychology and knowing, for example, what the metrics are for determining when somebody is psychologically ill, and most of it really has to do with the fact, does this pose a challenge for you in your everyday life? Do you feel restricted in any way in your everyday life? You can have, by definition, and I've seen this in person, a lot of people that tick all of the boxes for a specific case, but they don't have any complaints and they don't have any negative aspects in their daily life. And so by definition, these people are not ill. So, and this is where this very intricate part of being a coach also comes into play, because the perspective that the people have can create the most terrible of realities and the most terrible of worlds, particularly when there's such a scary situation as somebody having to flee and being a refugee in a different country. And so carefully navigating this potential threat, as well as offering the necessary support and connections to psychotherapists if there should be such a need, while also carefully creating a positive reality and a positive outlook is what is the balance, and what is sort of the artistry about it? The artistry on working on the human mind canvas, which is what inspires me the most about my own work. So yeah.
Well, I can still read, understand, and communicate with German engineers very easily in German. What I've forgotten, though, is conversational German. Like, I try doing some conversational German with my wife when we're in a store, wo ist sie, different things like that. But one of the things that kind of irritates me is I forgot how to tell time in German. But it's a mindset, just like what you were just talking about. It is a mindset, and people have to be able to put themselves in that particular mindset, understanding other people. And if you don't want to understand other people, you're not going to be very good at whatever you're going to do, whether it's coaching or something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and there has to be this willingness as well. Yeah, it's as a coach, it's difficult to work with someone who's been, we always say this, the most difficult client is the one that's been assigned to you.
Yes.
Yes.
And this truly is the case. And some people say that it's impossible to work with these clients. It's not impossible, definitely not. This is where sort of the line between being a coach and just being a person and somebody who has had life experience and education comes in, where you just talk to the person beside and say, do you want to take this opportunity or not? Right?
Excellent.
Exactly, yeah. And this plus then if they engage, finding what it is that connects them to this topic. So even if maybe they are an introvert and they're not coming to a different country, they're an introvert, they don't want to talk to many different people, they don't have this intrinsic desire, finding what it is that motivates them about the situation, because
yes,
most of the time, if not all of the time, there is something that can and that will keep this person going if this person is willing to go there. Yeah. And getting to this point is the challenge. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
We have 9 minutes left. Just briefly, before we, of course, Sandro, we still have some time for you to talk, but just wanted to make sure that everyone knows if we haven't, if you have any questions, now's the time to raise them, because we don't have much time left. So come up with any questions you might have.
Yeah. I know that my parents will be watching this stream. I'm not sure if they have questions. They could ask me afterwards. Yeah.
Of course, and as as we said, this is being recorded, and you can always put something in the chat in the recording, and in the YouTube later on, and that gets monitored, I believe. I look in there myself every now and then, but I'm sure Gary does, and it's an opportunity to connect through that link as well. So ask questions and
Yeah, perfect. I mean,
comment. Yeah.
If there are no, I mean, we're in a conversation either way. If anybody has any questions,
I thought it was an excellent presentation. Very well done. It's of course, I have a big screen monitor here and everything. I can read it very well. I'm blind to my left eye. I'm blonde to the right one. But anyway, it's a very well done presentation. You explained yourself extremely well, and I hope we see you come back.
Yeah, I will. I'm thinking there's a break coming up for the BEwell presentations, but if you will have me back, I will be back for sure.
Oh, you're always welcome.
I'm sure Gary will take you up on that.
Yeah. Yeah, he really cares about people.
So, is there any wise words you would like to leave us with, Sandro? How can we, the attendees here,
I do not know how much wisdom I have have left in me.
you could tell, you
No.
could tell us this for the next 14 days, you would keep us busy, right?
Yes, for sure, for sure. But maybe I can just wrap this up a bit. So there was a lot of information, in particular also about the differences in perspective. I think this is the main key takeaway. One of my favorite psychological methods, tools, what have you, is the positive psychology by Martin Seligman. And so there was a famous quote, which is like, positive psychology is to catalyze a change from repairing the worst qualities in life to enhancing the best qualities in life. So instead of looking what is bad, how can we fix it? We can look at what is good and how can we improve on this. Mm-hmm. And this is another challenge in coaching, because implementing positive psychology for certain clients, it's of course difficult to just look at it from a positive perspective, right? Don't you just love hearing this? Mm-hmm. Something bad happened, or why don't you just look at it positively? But behind the sentence lies a lot of lies this trick of the perspective switch, which is that in any situation, just looking at people who have come from the most terrible life circumstances, and some of them have still this positive outlook on life and believe in a greater good, believe in the future, and believe in working towards achieving something and leaving a legacy. And if people who have lived through such times can have this mindset, then somebody who is maybe not happy with their job or isn't quite there when it comes to their life goals or what is essentially, there should be nothing stopping this person from also looking at how can we enhance the positive side about this? How can I learn from this? How can I just choose to be Mr. Positive and look at the positive side of it, instead of letting myself be downed or attacked by this demon, this negative, the negativity, the bad things in life, and all of the things that can drag you down.
Yes.
So glass half full or half empty, right?
Yeah, especially, and just like with this example, it's a choice, right? It's your choice. If you say it's a glass half full or glass half empty, both statements are correct, mm-hmm. But you can choose to believe one or the other. Mm-hmm.
But be careful with the water if you're using both positive and negative electricity.
Yeah.
And if you put them together, it's going to be a full glass.
I love me some science books, though. Yeah, they're good. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So maybe just quickly going through the slides. Yeah. So of course, one of the so anybody that is actively maybe working with people who are from other cultures, some of the tips. Don't speak slowly as to make them feel stupid, but maybe enunciate the words really, and just really make sure to speak clearly, not to make them feel stupid, but to make them appreciate the fact that you are considering the fact that they don't speak the language. Of course, patience is a huge role in this. In some instances, it's good to have an interpreter, and I'm not just talking about a translator, but there can be a cultural interpreter. For example, when there is for example, a large corporation is assigning a Chinese team and an American team to work together, to have maybe some person designated to be the expert on the cultural differences, and to make sure that these things are taken into consideration can be very helpful.
Love the passive and active listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Passive and active listening. Yeah. So really, this is a communication. I forgot the name, but a very famous person. Maybe one of you knows his name. I forgot it at the moment, but the sentence was, "We can never not communicate." So we're always communicating. Yeah. So whether it be through language or through gestures or whatever, we're always communicating something. Yeah. So passive active.
Even through body language.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I've had so many people sit like this, right? Like their shoulders up, which in itself is, and there's a very interesting video on it as well, which to have your arms crossed like this is a sign of building distance, but to have, at the same time cover your throat is to show weakness, because you are sort of you're covering your vital areas. It's your bodily instinct to protect yourself, even though it's maybe just a social situation. There's nobody wanting to attack you or bite you in the throat. But yeah.
But
even in the eyebrows, you can detect sincerity.
Yeah. There's one aspect to there's a cultural aspect to body language as well. I mean, and even a gender aspect to it, because sometimes when you're putting your arms like this, you're just cold. You're trying to keep yourself warm, right?
Yes.
Or and someone who does this, they might be, I don't know what to say, right? How can I answer that? So I think there's a cultural aspect that we need to keep in mind with the body language, and also it's the sum of the elements, not just one single one.
Yeah. The sum of the elements.
It's like our glorious President of the United States fist bumping the Prince of Saudi Arabia. What a fool. That was so stupid. That's not their language, if you will. It's not their culture.
Yeah.
And he blew it.
Absolutely.
Now Europe and everybody else has to deal with not having enough fuel.
Yeah.
All those little silly things, they matter.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the truth behind it, is that maybe in this particular instance, maybe it was a Corona measure to not do the fist bump, but yeah, to have into consideration how others can. This is one thing that we taught the people, because even when it's Corona, in most parts of the world, we have gotten past that a bit, and at least from the cultural side of it. But for some people, it's still very important to take care of their health. Still, we encourage people, when they have a job interview, to always go out and reach for the other person's hand, because even if I mean the worst thing that can happen is that the boss is saying, "I'm sorry, we are still very Corona sensitive. I appreciate the gesture, but I won't give you my hand, but we can do like an elbow bump or whatever." But if you from the get-go don't even reach out your hand, the person doesn't know. You might be Corona. You might think about the health circumstances, or you might be rude. The person doesn't know, and so
Exactly.
yeah, there needs to be a little bit of sensitivity there as well.
They can always refuse to shake your hand.
Yeah. So this was the workshop. I don't have anything to add at this point. Thank you very much for participating. It was lovely to have you. Lovely to have this conversation.
Thank you, thank you, Sandro, so much. And I thought it was fascinating. I appreciate the topic, and it's huge. It's a huge topic, and to be able to, cover this in like 50 minutes is a feat. It's really good. Really good.
Very much. I tried my best.
Oh, it was great. It was an excellent presentation, put together well, presented yourself very, very well. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed your explanation and everything.
So folks, next week, Gary will be back and he'll be our host again next week. And by the way, I looked it up. It's Paul Václavic who said you can't not communicate. Yeah.
Yes.
It's something that we use here in the German language, actually, more, I think, than in the English language. I don't know if they use that so much in the English language, but it is here. Anyway, so it is true. It's true. You can't not communicate. You're just, even by being, by showing up, you're communicating something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, so thank you guys for showing up. Appreciate it. And I will stop the recording now, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, look forward to it.
Take care.
Please come back.
Thank you.
I will also be back for the next time for sure. Thank you very much for having me.
Enjoyed it.